Welcome back to another video. It's been quite a while since I've done a talkie, and as you can tell the background's different, and that's not because I've changed the wallpaper, it's because I've swapped two of the rooms round. And I've got a slightly different layout in here, which is, although a bit smaller, is a bit more cosy, so I'm hoping I'll spend a bit more time doing gameplay videos, famous last words, but we'll see. It's been ages since I've done one, apart from the one on the Xbox, which I did a couple of days ago, so maybe this is a good sign of things to come. So this video is about a set of answers to TRexSpaceStation, who about 2 or 3 weeks ago was asking various questions about games, collections and preferences and whatnot. And I'm a bit late answering these, so what I've proposed at the end of this is 5 more questions, and then see if we can keep this thing going and questions appear from different people. So the first question is a game that costs £5 or less. So the three, I can never pick one, and any of these I can never pick one, is Virtual Racing Deluxe. So I got this one around 2000 along with Virtua Fighter and the Star Wars arcade game, and these were just a few pounds because at the time these were pretty common on the platform, and they were almost junk at that point. I think they weren't particularly collectible, and then all of a sudden they became, I think the reputation started to reappear, and they are what they are now. But all 3 of these games are really good. Virtual Racing Deluxe is like the Mega Drive game. I don't like it quite as much because it's not as fast, but there's more tracks, more cars, it feels a bit more solid, and graphically it's that little bit better. Whereas Virtua Fighter, I prefer this to the Saturn version. This did come out first in the UK, but it just feels a little bit more solid, whereas the Saturn one feels flaky because it was meant to be a rushed conversion. But yeah, there's a story behind that, which we'll probably never know entirely. And the other one's Star Wars Arcade, which out of the 3 I probably like the least. It's a good game, but I don't think it quite has the depth of the other 2. So the second question is a game that was recommended to you. Well, there are 2 here. One is Spec Ops: The Line by Dave Infected Flinch, and this one is meant to give the player PTSD after playing it, which sounded intriguing, and he's talked about this a few times, and I've started playing it yesterday and I've got about a third of the way through it, and it's a really good game. I don't really like military shooters, games like Call of Duty and Battlefield and those kind of games. I don't really enjoy them that much. I'm a bit burnt out with shooters. But this one's got a really good story, and it feels good. It feels a bit different. And the other one is Assault Suit Lanos. This was recommended a few times by Lawn Boys Post 1975, and I never heard of this. And I had a look around and I found out it's a Messiah game. I really like Messiah. They did quite a few games I can think of on the shelf. There's Hellfire and a few others, and shoot 'em up games that are really, really good games. I can't get very far in it. It's really hard, so I need to play this a bit more. There recently was a conversion to the PS4 of this, but it's a really good game, and it just feels like a Mega Drive import. There's a whole bunch of games that came out in Japan around the time that had a certain feeling to them, and they never came out in the West, and I would say this is a really good example of it. It's like a run and gun shooter game in mechs, that kind of thing. So, a game that is challenging. Now, there are a few here. I'll start with the Mega Drive. I didn't want to do everything Mega Drive, so it is varied. But the 2 that I can think of, one is Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Ghouls. I always forget which is the prequel and which is the sequel. Really hard game. Good conversion on the Mega Drive, but it's just so difficult. Probably the one that I got the furthest on is the Amiga version, which may be slightly easier. I don't remember. I can't get very far in it. It's just so unforgiving, even from the first level. I mean, this game's fairly well known. It's pretty notorious for its difficulty level. I've tried it many times. I just can't get very far. The other one's Strider, which at the beginning isn't a very difficult game. It's just the difficulty ramps up towards the end, and I've tried this again and again and again, and I've never managed to finish it. But it's a really good game. Now, on the SNES, we've got Super Contra, or Contra 3, or Pro Protector 3, or Super Pro Protector, or whatever it was called in the West. It's got so many different names. This is a really good game. Again, run and gun, but so hard. It's even hard on the first level. You got one shot and you die. And years ago, when I originally owned the SNES, I got really far in it, but I don't think I ever finished it. The only one I finished was the Game Boy conversion, which was slightly easier. But really good game. It stands up well even now. And the last one from this set is Cannon Fodder on the Jaguar. I cannot finish the last couple of levels. I don't know if it's the last level or the last mission with like multiple sub-levels. But I got really far when I first bought this in 1995, and I just cannot get past that level. At the time, I remember getting to a point and not being able to get past it. And I got past this level and I thought, great, I can finish the game now. And I got a bit further and I just got to this level and I just can't do it. And I've been stuck there for 21 years. So yeah, maybe I'll finish that. Maybe I won't. But I've got the Mega Drive version of that I've been playing a little bit. But it's still hard. I didn't know whether it was some quirk in the Jaguar version, but it's not. It's just a hard game. Games which you'd wish you'd played more. There are a lot of these. And Ben's question was games that you'd wish you'd played more or games that you'd never played. And I'm sorry to hold this one up. Final Fantasy VII. I have never played this myself. I've seen other people play it, and I've been with people that have played it, and I might have picked the controller up once or twice, but I've never put the game in and played it all the way through. I like RPGs, and I've been playing other Final Fantasies. It's just I've never got around to this. And I don't know if it's just a psychological thing that I don't want to be disappointed, which I won't be because I've played it, so I know what it's like. It's just I've never got around to playing it. So yeah, this is one that I'm probably going to end up playing on my PS3 at some point, in backwards compatibility mode, so I can play it on the big TV. Metal Gear Solid 2, PlayStation 2. I've never even put this game on. I played the first game on the GameCube and really enjoyed it, and I've seen this one being played, but just never played it for some reason. It's on this pile of games that I want to play, but just never get around to playing for some reason. The other one is Yakuza. Now, I did start playing this probably around 8 years ago, but I went away on holiday and didn't want to play it too much because I was enjoying the story and didn't want to get to a point where I had to relearn all the controls, so I stopped playing it and I never picked it up again. I've got Yakuza 2 and the two games cheap on the PS3, and now that there are more games coming out on the PS4, I think it's the anniversary coming up, or it might be this year, I was reminded about this series and I'm thinking I really should actually play these games because they look really good. I mean, there are a few remakes coming out on the PS4, but I've got the originals, so I might as well play them. The games are meant to be more or less the same on the... Well, they're not really remakes, they're more like upscaled versions with better textures. And the last one from this question is Project 03. Really liked the first game. The second one I remember playing all the way through in only a few days and really enjoying the game. And I wanted to play the third game and it was really expensive. And about a year ago I saw it was like a job lot on eBay that didn't have this game in it. Sorry, didn't have the game listed in it. But it was there and it wasn't very expensive, so I bought this huge pile of PlayStation 2 games to get this game, and I haven't played it yet. I've been playing the fifth game on the Wii U and really enjoying that, so I'm going to have to come back to play this game. But it's meant to be pretty good. It's meant to be a bit different to the second one. I would say out of the three that I've played so far, the second one's my favourite, but maybe I'll enjoy this one more. I don't know, so I've played it. Games you've completed. Now, yeah, I'd be careful with this because there are a lot of games I've completed over the years, but I've picked out a bunch that are memorable. So it's almost like games where it might be a while since you've played them, but you can remember every nuance, every corridor, every cutscene, things that just stick in the mind. And the first one that comes to mind is Shadow of the Colossus. I've only ever played this once, and this was probably about 10 years ago, and I enjoyed it so much. Just the atmosphere and every little nuance in the game, and it's really difficult. It's one of those that takes a while to get into the gameplay, but once you've got the game, you get hooked on it, and you just want to see it through to completion. There aren't many enemies in the game. The enemies are the bosses, and really, it's not about interacting with people or characters, although there are other characters in the game. I don't want to spoil it too much for those who haven't played it, but really the character is the world, and you explore this world. There is a version on the PS3, so this is one that I bought fairly recently, just to play this through again on a big TV that doesn't look bad. This does support progressive scan, but you really got to play this on a CRT. It doesn't look that good on a LCD. So the other one was Exhumed. So this is one Ben mentioned. This one I've finished only ever once. I've started playing the PlayStation version a few times, just so I can play it on a LCD, and it's a really nice conversion, either this one or the PlayStation. There are a couple of differences, but not much. The Saturn one's got a higher frame rate a little bit, and the PlayStation one's got higher texture quality a little bit, but not much. Both good games, but this one, yeah, it's like a Metroidvania game, but it's an FPS, and this was in 1990. It says 96. It was 96 when I first got this. I got this pretty much at launch and played it all the way through, and it's just such a memorable experience. Yeah, really well recommended. If you like FPS games that are a bit different, or you like your Metroidvania games and you fancy it in 3D, and it's on the Saturn and it has really good 3D, then you know you're on a winner there. Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap. Again, one that I've only finished once, and I haven't really played much since. This, again, is like a Metroidvania style game, where you end up becoming one character. You get cursed, and then you get certain abilities, and then you end up fighting another boss, and you get a different curse, and you become a different character, like a mouse or a lion, or a dragon and whatnot. And with the mouse you can walk up walls, certain walls, and yeah, it's really good, and you're exploring the world, and it's not the biggest of games, but it's a really good game for the Master System, really impressive graphics. There is a PC Engine version as well, which has better music, but you get the Japanese text, so it depends which you prefer. There's not a lot of text in the game, it's mainly shops. Soulstar, Mega CD. I've mentioned this lots and lots of times. Fantastic game for the system. Really good use of 3D, your Mode 7 style effects, lots of sprite scaling. Not the longest of games. I've never finished this on the actual hardware. I played it on an emulator just so that I could save the game, because it's really hard. I can't beat this on the real hardware, so maybe it should have been an answer to the other question, but it's really rewarding once you finish it. It's a good game. I think this is one that I recommended to a bunch of other people, so maybe that will appear in someone else's response. Project 02. This is the one that I like the most out of all the games. The sense of dread in the game is really good. You're in this, I forget the name of it, it's a certain era of Japan, and it's a certain style of horror, and I can never remember the name of it because I want to find more of it. But you're in one of these temples, and it's all been abandoned, and it's this old village, and it's just eerie, and there's not a lot of light in the game. The textures are muddy. You're on a fairly low resolution screen, which is what the PS2 is, and it works. I've seen this on the Wii in slightly higher definition, and it doesn't quite work as well. The ability to not see your environment works well. But yeah, so if you haven't played any of these games, essentially you've got a camera and you've got to see the enemies and take pictures of them, and that damages them in various ways. But it's just a really good, unnerving horror game from Japan, which is a bit different. And the last one for this one is Alien Isolation, which is another horror game. Really enjoyed this. Started playing this again. It's one of those I don't know, I tend to find on last generation and this generation, I'm not playing games more than once, but this one, I bought the game, played it, downloaded all the mission packs, and played it, and then I got the PS4, and then sold the game, and bought the PS4 version, and found that I could re-download all the extra mission packs for free, essentially, although I'd already paid for them once. So I've been playing those and playing the game again. Really good sense of, yeah, like Dread and Isolation, a lot like the other one, but it's accurate to the original Alien. It just feels like you're in that world. It's a good game. So, right, these are the 5 other questions. So hopefully I've not been going on too long. So the one here, and I'll write these down, is a game that you liked that most people didn't. So, I think you know what this is going to be. I was chatting with Dean, Escape to Gaming, this morning on Facebook, and this is a game that came up, and I had to talk about this. I really like this game. I remember seeing the trailers, and I know there was a lot of controversy because the game didn't match the trailer, but to me I don't care too much. It's the game that you play. I ignore the trailers. And I played this probably about 18 months after the game came out, so there was a pretty big patch. So I didn't play the game at launch, so I've only played the fixed version, but I enjoyed it. It was a game that didn't outstay its welcome. It felt like the Aliens films, just as Alien Isolation felt like Alien, this felt like Aliens. The AI was a bit dumb, so the enemies feel like bugs a little bit, whereas Alien Isolation, they feel like the alien. Yeah, I get that, but then again, on the films, the aliens were a bit more like bugs anyway, so I'm willing to, you know, suspend that disbelief there. The mission pack's really good. I'm not sure if I prefer that more or not. I bought the game, played it through, and just after finishing it, wanted more. So I downloaded the mission pack and played it through in the next couple of days. Good game. It's cheap, and it might not be to, you know, everyone's preference. There are a lot of bad things like visual flaws in the game, but you know, I enjoyed it. It just had the atmosphere, and to me that was the important thing. It felt like an Alien game. Sonic R. This is a game that some people really don't like and were disappointed with because we didn't get a proper Sonic game on the Saturn. We got the Sonic 3D conversion from the Mega Drive, and we got this. Now this game has really janky controls, but once you get into it, you realise it's not just about running around the tracks. There are these other objectives and there are hidden areas, and you've got to really train yourself that winning isn't the key thing. It's about running around doing all these other things and then still being able to win at the same time. I mean, the 3D was pretty good. It had a lot of lighting effects. The draw distance was pretty good, and yeah, it's by Traveller's Tales. They did a lot of really good games, particularly on the Mega Drive, games like Mickey Mania, and this game has been ported to the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, maybe the Xbox as well, I'm not sure, on the Sonic Gems collection. So you get this, Sonic CD, Sonic Fighters, but they were conversions of the PC games, and I've played it, and I just prefer this a little bit more than the other conversions. But it was a game I played a lot back in the day and really enjoyed. Now this one, Ben mentioned this, it does look a bit rough, particularly now. But back in the day, there was so much hype for this game, and there are a whole bunch of things that this game does that the original didn't. There's a lot of coloured, like dynamic lighting, not shadows, but lighting. So if you fire a projectile down the corridor, you did get to see it a little bit on the original game, where you can see the polygons on the walls react to it. But on this, the lighting is really turned up quite high, and the colours are a lot more vivid on the lighting. There are some weird sort of transparency water effects too, which is, you know, it's a good use of the Saturn's hardware, and this is made by, or rather ported by, Lobotomy, who did Exhumed, and then they did this, and they did Duke Nukem. And now, something Ben touched on, that Exhumed looks a lot more polished, and I think that's true. having read the history of the company, Duke Nukem 3D and this were ported pretty quickly, and I think it shows. There's a little bit of roughness in the game, and particularly with Quake, it feels slightly off. If you play the PC game and you play this, it doesn't quite feel right. But if you'd never played it back in the day, it felt pretty good. And it's the same with Duke Nukem. It doesn't quite feel right. Even though it's a technically good game, given the hardware. You know, some people don't like the 3D on the Saturn. There's arguments over this. If it's programmed right, the Saturn is capable, and this is an engine that does make good use of it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. And the last one is another Mega Drive game, which is Universal Soldier, which was panned. This is Turrican 2. The Code Monkeys who ported this converted the original game, which was reasonably good, on the Mega Drive. It didn't quite feel right compared to the Amiga game. There was something slightly different in the controls, but not much. It's like Uncanny Valley kind of thing. It's like 99% there. But Universal Soldier was going to be Turrican 2. It's just, was it Accolade or Acclaim? Accolade got the license to Universal Soldier, and the game was converted. So it's almost like a sprite swap. There are some extra levels which are not great, that tie into the film a bit more, and the shoot 'em up levels have gone. But if you want Turrican 2 on a console and you want to play it quick without putting the discs in, you just want a quick game, this is really good. It's a good game. If not exactly Turrican 2, it's close enough. So the next one is a game that most people liked that you didn't. So this is opposite. Now, the games I can think of here are Tomb Raider. I just never got into this game. I played a demo of it on Saturn when it came out on a magazine in '96, and I just didn't get on with the game. I didn't know whether it was just the Saturn version that was a bit glitchy and clunky, and then I played the PlayStation version and it just felt the same. I just didn't get on with the controls. It felt a bit like Prince of Persia in a way, but not the good bits, and I just never got into the games. The later ones I think were meant to be a bit better. I hadn't really played any of them until the recent Tomb Raider games, which I did enjoy, but just the original style, Tomb Raider, Tomb Raider 2, Tomb Raider 3, and the ones on the Dreamcast, all look pretty similar, and I've played a couple of them, and they just, yeah, I just couldn't get on with it. Although it's got a good reputation. B-Rally 2. This is meant to be a good rallying game on the Dreamcast, and I just didn't like it. I've done a video of this about 18 months ago. I like the PlayStation 1 version of the game, but the Dreamcast one just felt weird. It kind of felt like early like 3D effects games played at a high resolution, though, and it just felt really, I don't know, like a really dated PC game. I don't know, it just didn't feel right. The controls just felt really slippery on this version of the game, which is a shame because it looks nice, but you can tell it's perhaps an earlier PS1 game that's been almost like upscale on the Dreamcast, and it's got this really weird feeling to it. It just feels, yeah, it's like playing a game like Quake 2 on a modern PC at 1080p. It just doesn't feel as good as when you played it on a low resolution screen, but the controls just feel, to me, a bit weird on it, and I didn't really enjoy it. And this one is one that some people enjoy, some people don't. It looks nice, and I haven't played this since probably the year 2000 when I first bought the Dreamcast. This was one of the first games I got for it, and it got good reviews at the time, and I just didn't get on with it. I don't know if it was the lack of draw distance that was the problem, or whether it was because you can turn 360 degrees, so there's no real concept of up. But then again, I like Descent, which didn't have a concept of up or down. I don't know, I just felt you could very easily get lost in the game, in like these underground caverns, and it wasn't fun. I just felt it was, I don't know, something was missing in the game. It's a beautiful looking game, it looks really nice, and maybe I should go back to this, maybe I'll enjoy it more now, but I got tired after it, of it after maybe 2-3 weeks, playing it on and off, and I just never went back to it, which is a shame really, because I enjoyed the original Echo games quite a lot. So a game that you bought on a whim. This was one I picked up from Replay a couple of years back now. This is Generations Lost. I've never seen a review of this game. I don't think I've seen a gameplay of it, but I remember it vaguely from back in the day. And this was meant to be a little bit like Flashback, and I just bought it from one of the sellers, and I played it quite a bit. It's a little bit like Flashback. It's just got its own personality. It's kind of odd. It feels like one of those later Mega Drive games that were higher graphical quality but a bit slower. Maybe games like Eternal Champions that just felt really big sprites but were a little bit slow. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was not one that I regretted. I really should do a gameplay on this. It's really slow. It's almost like a blend between this and Pitfall, and games like this and Pitfall, Flashback and Pitfall, but really slow, and you've got to be really methodical. Maybe a bit of Prince of Persia in there as well, but it's enjoyable. Good game. This is Xrd. I got this because it's a Messiah game, and this is a top-down strategy game, a little bit like Nectaris, similar kind of game on the PC Engine, and I think Nectaris is a bit more well known. It's just a top-down strategy game, and I quite enjoy these games on the PC Engine and the SNES. Yeah, it's a good game. I forget the one. There's a sequel to this on the SNES. That I mentioned before. I'm just blanking on it now. Then there's one called Lunar Strike, but that's the last one. I forget the name of the SNES one now. I'll probably have to put a caption on. But yeah, this is a really good game. I just saw it on eBay, and it wasn't particularly expensive, and I thought I really liked this style of game, so I just bought it on a whim. I bought quite a few of these games like Robot Wars, or Super Robot Wars on the Super Famicom, and really enjoyed them. You've got to learn a bit of Japanese. It's just recognising some of the commands, but as long as you can visually recognise like 4 commands, you could probably play the game. Slight interruption there, the battery ran out. I bought a fairly big memory card a few weeks ago thinking I'm not going to have to change things during the video, but I forgot to charge it. So there we go. Hopefully no problems with the memory card. We'll see. So this is Zanyasha. So this is a game that I definitely bought on a whim. I saw this online a few times as Japanese Mega Drive imports. Saw it quite a few times on eBay. Didn't know anything about it. I like the look of the cover, and it's a Wolf Team game, which got my interest. Not very many videos on YouTube. I probably had this about 2 years now, and the only videos then were soundtracks. So people had recorded the soundtracks and used like a sound test, but not much about the game. I started to play it and then I realised there's a lot of kanji in it. It's not like the other Japanese strategy games where you can get away by having a cheat sheet or knowing a little bit of kanji, so things like attack, defend, magic, things like that. But this is more like the Nobunaga games. There's a little bit more going on in them. They're a bit more complex, and there's a lot of story in it. So what I started to do, bits and pieces. So in the manual, you get a lot of fairly clear text in there. So you can see all the commands and whatnot. And what I've done is taken my phone using Google Translate, and I've tried to translate bits and pieces of the text, which you can't really do from the game because, one, if you're playing it on a CRT, it's difficult to photograph, although you could just use an emulator to get a really nice screenshot. But the resolution's too low, and some characters get translated and some don't, so it didn't really seem like a good idea. But the manual's quite useful. It's just a long process of trying to learn the language, so I wouldn't say I regret buying this game, even though I've perhaps not got as much use out of it as I'd have liked, but it's a good motivation to keep learning the language and try and get through more kanji. it's not the basic stuff that you get from books, it's more complex. So, the next one is, what is the stinker in your collection? Now, I don't have many stinkers in the collection. I've got a lot of sports games that I've got through bundles and whatnot, but I wouldn't call those stinkers. They're perhaps not games to my taste. But this one is a sports game and it's a stinker. I like PGA games. I like the Mega Drive games a lot. I play them all the way through, from the first one all the way up to 96 on the Mega Drive. Even though 96 graphically was impressive, it was a bit slow to load, but it was a good game. It felt good. But this one, on the back, has got these, I don't know if you can see it, digitized sprites and backgrounds, a little bit like the Lynx 386, 486 games, which were 10 years before. No, actually, that's rubbish. It wasn't. It was about 5 years before this. I remember playing them on DOS, and yes, it was all photo based, but they looked right. They just looked good. Whereas this doesn't look right. It looks like cheap photos stuck together. And I think this was a bit of an experiment for the series on a new graphical way of going without going proper 3D, like the Tiger Woods games and the ones you get now, which look a lot nicer. But yeah, I just didn't get on with it. This was £2 about 18 months ago on the Saturn. I should have been suspicious with it being so cheap. But I kept it. I never got rid of it for some reason. Maybe it's a game that I'll grow to love, but I've seen a lot of reviews, recent and back then, online, and I don't think anyone really likes this game. So the last question is, a game that was given to you. Now, the one that comes to mind is this one, again by Infected Flinch. This has been covered by quite a few people. This is Barbie Race and Ride, which is an FMV style game. So you're behind the horse for some sections of the game, and it's like quick time events where you're running and jumping, and it's kind of bad but entertaining, so I was happy to have that. And the next one is this, the last one is, let's take it out, it's out of sleep, is Sega Rally 2006. This was from Custado, who had 2 copies of this, and this is a really nice game. It never came out in the West. I have no idea why. It's kind of like a special edition, this one, because it came with the you can see Sega Rally 2006, but it comes with a PlayStation 2 port of the Saturn game. I think it's it looks more like the Saturn game when I've played it compared to the arcade game, so I think it's a port of that. It's probably the PC game that got ported, but for some reason this just never came out in the West. I've played it a little bit, and it feels somewhere between the second game on the Dreamcast, and it's somewhere between the Sega Rally that came out on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, but maybe a bit more of like the WRC style in there. It's a bit different, and I don't know why it never came out in the West. It certainly was never an arcade game, and you think this would sell, but guess not. Sega just decided not to release this. Maybe it was just a case it took that long to be, well, not come out, but to be decided to be translated and converted to the West, that the new Sega Rally game was coming out and they just never bothered. I don't know, but yeah, I've enjoyed it anyway, and I've enjoyed playing the Sega Rally 1995, the original version, again with like texture filtering on the PlayStation 2. So yeah, that's it. So the questions are, a game that you liked that most people didn't, a game that most people liked that you didn't, which is kind of the opposite, a game that you bought on a whim, the stinker of your collection, and a game that was given to you. So yeah, thanks Ben for those questions. I'm a little bit late in answering them, but yeah, it's been quite fun just to go over the games and try and pick one, and I can never pick one on anything, so I always pick like 3 or more. So yeah, hopefully that's been informative, and maybe there are a few games here that perhaps you've overlooked that you get some use out of and get some enjoyment out of. Or maybe there's some games that I've picked, such as that. You're going, why did you pick that game? It's just awful, but I like it. I like it. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I'll look forward to seeing the responses to the questions as they come through.